Hello everybody, welcome back to another Conversations with Projektor. Today we start with Ableton Workflow talk. Before I go, you can contribute topics for this series on my Discord server. So this is the menu for the Live Enhancement Suite, right? So you can see this corresponds to this stuff over here. We have Serum, Vital, Faceplant, Omnisphere, and then all of my other synths and stuff. And you can see here we have instruments, Serum, Vital, Faceplant, Omnisphere, and all of the other things. And that just goes on and 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 much further. I was going to do on and on and on for the whole thing, but I started to feel my hand there. So you customized it by your favorite devices. I customized it by the way that I guess, look for devices. Usually what I would have before is I would have my plugin folder kind of organized by type of device that was in there, I believe. And then I would have, together with the audio effects, I would have different collections, which I now use for a whole bunch of different things. But I used to have like the most used ones over here, and then I would have instruments, maybe like filters, which is anything that has to do with a filter really. So EQs, filter plugins, comb filters, modulation, phasers, that kind of stuff. Maybe ambience over here with the reverb and delay, and then maybe like dynamics and distortion, or dynamics and saturation, maybe something like that. I would organize it like that. So the way that I thought of doing the menu is I just organize that in the same way, in that it's just the categories that I might be looking for. And then if I need like a MIDI modifier, I'll know that I'll find a MIDI modifier here. If I need to do some modulation, I'll know that the Dark Integer mod pack is in here. I have all of my Ableton audio effects in here, at least the ones that I use. I have some easy or some racks that I like to use, not many. To be honest, I need to update it. I have a bunch of extra plugins that aren't currently in here. But this is one of the things that I like to do every half a year, where I just sit down for a day and organize all of my files, organize this stuff over here, organize the template, see if there's something that I can improve in that. Move files around for not just the music side, but also the editing side of things when I'm creating content and stuff like that. But yeah, making the menu and updating the menu is kind of part of that as well. Never ever upgrade to 12, because then you cannot use the super fast and handy Live Enhancement Suite. Yes, exactly. For me personally, there's not really a benefit, in the sense that the music that I write, none of the new features that have been added look particularly interesting for that kind of music. Because for all of the sample browsing stuff that they have done with the tags and all of that, I already have my samples organized. These are all of the samples that I'll ever need to write my track. There's like a few kick drums in here, but it's mainly the open hats, closed snares, that kind of stuff. So this is all of the drums that I need. This is all of the effects and stuff that I need to write a track. And really, those are the main samples that I'm looking for. So for sample organization, I don't need any of the tags and stuff like that. Like if I look for a snare, I'll be able to find the snare in here in a few seconds that I like, right? Because I know the snares are roughly around here, and I can just open up the snares that I want. I don't need to have more detail in my drums folder than just this, because you can see everything that there is there. Those tags are really helpful if you have a drum folder that has 1,000 drum files in it, and you're looking for a specific snare, then you can just filter out just having the snares in that. But even that, I mean, it's not that hard to type, right? So it doesn't really get faster, in my opinion. The real thing that would upgrade my workflow is stuff like plugin delay compensation, plugin sandboxing, those kind of things. Bounce in place would probably be an upgrade to my workflow, although I'm not quite sure right now how I would use it, because it's not like I freeze a lot of stuff when it comes to my normal productions. So those are the things that I'm like really excited for to see added to Ableton. And the stuff that they added now, the only thing that I think is really cool is the fact that you can have the mixer or the clip kind of open up in two different things. I can see the effects and the MIDI over here. And the only reason why I'm happy about that change is because it would potentially be useful in YouTube tutorials where I have to switch fewer times between screens, right? If I'm explaining something about the MIDI and then I go into the effects, I don't have to switch part of the interface to do that, which means that the videos become a little bit more cohesive. At the end of the day, it's still nice to follow, but it would be nice having an extra screen up here where you can just show for a little bit what you're doing, for example, with the MIDI. well, you may be talking about, I don't know, the synth patch in here or something like that. The only thing that I liked about 12 is the arrangement view and the MIDI upgrades. Yeah, so the MIDI upgrades and all of that stuff, to be honest, it's not something that I'm particularly looking forward to, because I am fine writing the way that I write with all of the MIDI. People are really hyped about that you can now make those like riser thingies. What I mean by that is this stuff over here, those risers that increase in speed. But you can already do that, right? You can just make like, let's go for a 2-bar thing here and just plonk a note down. I have completely forgotten all of the shortcuts that I used to use. Okay. You can now do this particular thing directly inside of the MIDI, right? By just generating the MIDI notes over here. There's the little generator menu. And there's some more stuff in there for like ARPs and maybe chords and stuff like that, as far as I'm aware. To be honest, I didn't go that deep into the whole MIDI stuff updates. I knew that wasn't something for me, so I didn't spend too much time actually looking at what they did, what they changed. But from everything that I can tell, the upgrade doesn't really provide a tangible benefit. And it is $150 that I could also spend on, I don't know, like 3 plugins that would upgrade my workflow. So that's kind of the consideration that I make when upgrading software, and why you would stick with Live 11 over 12. I think I even did a video on that, explaining these exact things.
Serum versus Vital.
I honestly can't decide whether I prefer Serum or Vital, despite being very similar synths. I feel they serve radically different purposes. When it comes to as I said, the differences between them, Serum feels more precise to me. It also feels like Serum just has more stuff. I mean, it's been around for longer, right? So you have all of these crazy kind of filters. You have more flanger, phaser options, that kind of stuff. At least it feels like it. The reason why it might feel that way is because if you look in the menu, there's not a lot of stuff here, but you have a lot more customizability with the free parameters over here, instead of just filter cutoff and resonance. This one comes with filter cutoff, resonance, and then the type between which you switch, right? This stuff over here. Which means that technically speaking, you have an infinite amount of filters in between the low pass, the band pass, and the high pass. But it doesn't really feel that way. The second thing is, I think Vital is more for synths in terms of psytrance stuff. You can do a lot more cool synth stuff in here. Whereas for basses and any precise sound design that you might want to do, kicks, basses, any drums, if you're into that kind of stuff, it's probably best to use Serum for that. I'm not entirely happy with how you have to hover over some things. And sometimes when you, let's say that you want to modulate the spread, it's like really sometimes annoying the way that Vital works. I guess it's because I've not been using it as much as Serum, that I'm so used to the way that Serum works that any little difference in that immediately becomes an annoyance. Because if we talk about modulation systems, it's pretty much identical the way that it works. In fact, I would say that Vital, in terms of the way that you set up auxiliary modulation, is much better, because you can set an auxiliary for an auxiliary for an auxiliary for an auxiliary if you want. Say that I want, as an example, I have this parameter over here modulated. I can set an auxiliary here, and then I can set an auxiliary there, and then I can set an auxiliary to that, and then I can set an auxiliary to that, and I can just keep on going with more auxiliaries if I really wanted to. Not that 5 auxiliary things going into other things is ever really useful, but I found myself sometimes needing an auxiliary modulation for modulation that in and of itself is already the auxiliary. You know what I mean? You're modulating the modulation amount, which, I mean, the cool thing about this is that you can also do that from any starting position, I guess. So you could set the modulation amount higher like this, as opposed to just overtaking the modulation the way that in Serum it does. It goes from 0 to 100%. You cannot say that you want a macro to go from 0 to 200% modulation on a certain modulation. You cannot really set that up inside of Serum, not in the way that you can do that in Vital. I guess, again, not because it's it happens after the delay and reverb. This is one of the reasons why I don't like delay and reverb on my in the actual patch itself. Luckily, there's always the soft clipper that you can use. It is strange how few places you can change the volume over here. Just off the patch itself, you have the levels over here, and then all of the rest doesn't really come with a volume. You never really understand how much you're missing that until it's no longer there. Because it's not like, I guess inside of Serum you have every effect has its own dedicated level knob. When you click the mix, you get the level knob, except for like the EQ and such. But also having it in the filter, having a drive that actually raises the output volume, which this one doesn't seem to do. Right? It's not really adding 20 dB of drive here. It's not even adding 20 dB of distortion, in my opinion, because it doesn't sound distorted whatsoever. For those things, I guess having it in Serum is a little bit nicer, because there you can actually level balance different effects that you're doing. If you have an effect like we have the hype over here, it is very easy to level balance. In this case, what might end up happening is that we have another effect over here that needs also level balancing, and that then also needs to control the drive over here, and that may cause some issues. I see a lot of sound designers getting into Vital. What is some of the main differences between Vital and Serum, or is it just that people want to try something new? I think people want to try something new, for sure. That being said, what I've noticed working with Vital, I said it earlier on in the stream, it's less precise. The whole idea, I think, behind Vital is that it's spectral based. And that has some benefits in that you can do very, very cool stuff. All of the stuff that you see in here, in harmonic stretching and random amplitudes and phase dispersion and all of this stuff over here. It's maybe easier to implement that way, but it feels sometimes a little bit less precise in you getting the sound out of it that you exactly set up in the settings. I don't actually have a good example of this now because I think I deleted the preset that I was initially working on here. But this is kind of like a base layer thing. Now it sounds good. Right, this is the kind of thing that you would just add to the bassline to add a little bit of extra character, and maybe you want to do like a groove or something like that, then you could do that. The patch that I originally had here, every transient sounded differently. Even though within the old patch itself, I never set it up in a way that it would do that. Right now, over here, the phase is at 100%. So it's normal that you're going to get different transients. But in that other patch, it was at 0%, yet still every transient sounded different. So that is, I guess, the main issue, I would say, with Vital. It's less precise in its sound design. The benefit is that you just have a whole new set of features that you can play with. As I said, all of the spectral stuff. There's more issues, to be honest, that I have with Vital, and it will probably never replace Serum for me because I think Serum is just superior. That being said, it can make some very cool stuff. It can make some very cool sounds.
We get too little room for text on macros.
So yeah, another complaint with Vital is the amount of text that you have over here. Serum is the same thing. You often don't get enough room to write the actual thing that you want to write here. But I've seen Vital is worse with some of the words that don't fit in there. That normally would. Like a lot of two-letter thing here. If I said changing tone in here, or change tone, that wouldn't fit in here, where in Serum it would fit in the little macro label that you have. I would say that the macros that are laid out in Faceplant are the best because they're laid out horizontally. So they have a lot more room for text. Overall, I think Faceplant is a very nice synth that suffers a little bit from the fact that you need to set up everything yourself before you can get into the actual sound design. Whereas Vital and Serum, they have everything set up so you can immediately dive in. That means that Faceplant will always be less quick to get your ideas out there because you have to build the synth before you can build the actual sound that you want to build inside of the synth that you just had built. Right?
Why I haven't covered saturation yet?
Projektor, you have a nice saturation chain in your video about sound placement. I would watch a full episode about saturation for sure.
To be honest, when it comes to saturation, I know a lot about it, but I cannot really hear enough details yet. This is something that I knew when I got the monitors, is that one, my place is definitely not perfect in terms of acoustics. I still feel like even with the new setup that the left speaker is slightly louder for me than the right one, because the left one has a wall behind it and the right one doesn't. And I knew that from the start, right? It's not some magical discovery that I made after I got monitors that, hey, like they're not performing the way that I wanted to. I knew that in this space that I'm currently sitting, whatever you do, you're not going to get good acoustics here. You would need to literally build another wall behind where I'm currently sitting, behind where the camera is, for it to actually sound good, because the left speaker has like a wall behind it and the right speaker doesn't, right? But when it comes to saturation, when you want to apply saturation effectively, and not just as Subject Ultra here says, throw it on there, turn the knob higher, and just leave it there, you would need to be able to really carefully listen to details, because saturation, in its very nature, if it's used in like a mixing kind of context, in the context where people really struggle with saturation, there you really need to be able to listen to details properly. And I've started to train myself a lot more by doing it, by, for example, revisiting some older Dan Worrell videos where I said to myself earlier when I would watch them, like, I really don't understand what Dan is talking about, because the differences that I hear are so minute. Why don't you place your table for best acoustic? Because then when I would stand up, I would hit my head on the ceiling. If I had placed my table for best acoustics, I would be sitting right here, and the wall is like, I'm touching the ceiling right now with my arm. So you can see that the camera is over here. I go 10 centimeters, maybe 15 more up, and this is the ceiling. So I cannot really do that here. And I knew that from the start. I knew all of the consequences here, that acoustically this isn't a good space. I just needed an apartment to stay at. And now that I found I think that I've found either a new apartment with the landlord of the current apartment, or I'm going back into the apartment where I used to be before. But instead of just having one room in that apartment, I'll have the whole apartment for myself. So before, there was 3 guys living there. It was 3 different bedrooms, a pretty large living room, and a very small kitchen, very small bathroom, and a little balcony. I'm going to take the room that I used to live in, where I used to work and sit, and where you guys, the one that you guys saw with the thing behind me, right? I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm instead going, because that was close to the street. I believe you guys remember the ambulances and all of that stuff. Every once in a while there would be an ambulance that would drive by my place, and you could catch it on the stream mic. The mic would pick it up. But I'm going to take the other 2 rooms where the other guys would live, and one is going to become my studio, and the other one is going to become my bedroom, essentially. That is at least the plan if I end up taking that apartment. And then, yes, I would have a place that I can, not only place the desk in a good way, but in the future, even once I gather the funds for that, do some acoustic treatment, which would be really cool. That's the point where it really starts to get serious, right? Then you get to actually call it your studio, when it has all of the panels on it and everything. I don't make the rules, I'll just follow them.
Do I live close to my parents?
You stay near your parents, or why do you always stay in the same region? I don't stay near to my parents. I live about 5 hours of train travel away, train and car travel. If everything goes well, that is, if there's no like delays and stuff like that, which here in Italy, I mean, it's probably the norm to have a little bit of delay. So I live 6 hours away from my parents. The reason why I like to stay here is this is where I used to study, and I can either pack up everything, move to a different place and try to make friends there, or just chill with the people that I used to study with here. Because here I do have some people that I know, right? So while I still can just live here, and I don't have any commitments to, say, a job or anything like that, or a partner or whatever, I can just do what I want. And the easiest thing is just staying in the same place. Well, I thought you were still somewhere around there. For traveling, it's not so far away that I cannot get back to my parents if I need to, but it's far enough away that I don't just go back for a day. You know what I mean? Also because I don't have a car. If I had a car, it would be much easier, of course. Then I don't have to worry about train delays and all of that thing. But to be honest, if I never have to buy a car, I would be perfectly happy. If at some point in my life I do need, because in terms of work, where do I go for work? At least right now, nowhere. And if I get to maybe do DJing for a living, let's say that the whole music thing really starts to work out, and the mix that we posted the other day on Eclipse blows up to 1 million views, and I get all kinds of inquiries from all kinds of different festivals. At that point, I assume that there will be some kind of manager that will just arrange travel for you. Like, I assume that a guy like Asterix doesn't drive from festival to festival himself. If he even goes by car, he lets somebody else drive. You'll often see that even in like Martin Garrix's vlogs and stuff like that, that he has like little Mercedes tainted window buses kind of thing that he drives, and he just gets in the back and he has a driver that just takes him from the airport to the party that he has to play at and then back to the airport so that he can go on the private plane and then he can go on to the next country so that he can go and play in the next festival or party or whatever it is. I assume that for me that the same would kind of happen.
Taxi to airport.
Yeah, taxi to airport, and then from the airport you fly to wherever you need to go. And then from there you again taxi, or at that point maybe the festival will have something arranged for you. To be honest, as I say, I don't know. I have never DJ'd a festival, so I really wouldn't be able to tell.
So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you did by leaving a like and making sure that you're subscribed. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.